Hey, everybody.
Hey, Matt, I just tried using the link in the email that I got today, and it told me the host was in another meeting. Has anyone gotten here to this meeting through the link in the email?
I got through that way.
Okay, good. Then it must have just been a fluke.
It was, I was in two. Yes, it wasn't your fault.
I just wanted to make sure that the link was working so good. It sounds good.
I was scared. It was like 5:59 and nobody was on.
No, I've been trying. It's slow because I'm like, what's going on? So it took a while for it to come through.
Okay, good. I was like, man, people really hate this committee now.
No, I think it was keeping everybody out because I was sitting there for about 4 or 5 minutes waiting.
Oh, okay, I see.
So it's just, I think the internet's slow.
Good to know. Awesome. Well, I'll wait a couple minutes here and I'm gonna get some water and we'll get started.
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Can somebody else talk so I can make sure my headphones are, I can hear you?
This is Michael. Elizabeth, do you have a wheelbarrow I can borrow?
All right, okay.
Hi, Elizabeth. It's Donna.
Hey, Loverly?
Yeah.
I don't think my headphones are working.
Michael, what's with you and wheelbarrows?
I need a whole bunch of wheelbarrows to mulch the berry patch on May 23rd. So anybody who has an extra wheelbarrow, I would like to borrow it in 3 weeks.
I got you. I got one.
Okay, great.
We got one in our garage and one over at 4th Street Farms too.
Okay, great. I will follow up. Lots of mulching to do. The berry patch is great, by the way, if you guys haven't been by there.
I walked past it after I left you with my screaming baby. Although she wasn't screaming after we spent some time in your garden.
Babies just calm down as soon as they get into my yard.
Yeah.
Has Matt joined us?
I Sam.
I'm not sure.
Well, I see his dining room wall.
Yeah, he did. He was in and checked the link. Everything was working, and then he went to get some water. He said he'd be back.
There you go.
All right, 6:03. Plenty of people here, which is awesome. Thanks for coming. So is Steve Bollinger here?
Yes, sir.
All right, why don't you take it away?
Share screen. Here we go. So I'm going to keep this really simple. It's purely looking at the architecture. I knew that I'd come back and talk to you guys a bit about the rice paddy. Also, are people thinking that we should change the name to this thing?
The name of the
What-
rice paddy?
What name are you guys proposing?
I'm not proposing any name right now, but I kind of feel, I mean, are people comfortable with us just calling it the rice paddy, or is it?
You should maybe ask the owner of the rice paddy. Isn't that still a business?
I think they moved over to the east side somewhere, I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, but I think I thought that they were still operating under that name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess not. I guess for these pieces, right? Like, I mean, we'll probably figure out something that isn't that name just because people are Googling, then it's going to be the same business. But yeah, I'm just referencing at that.
Ice house. What's
that?
What about if you refer to it as the ice house?
Ice House isn't bad.
What about the Patty Works?
Ice house is taken.
Yeah, that's the Columbus Blue Jackets skating rink.
Oh,
You're just
All right.
talking about
That's a name.
for
stuff.
another time. But the 11th and Grant development, and looking at the architecture of the two walk-ups apartment units. So we did another viewpoint just because we wanted to show it from 11th Avenue and show graffiti and everything like that. But I think the best is really looking at it in this view. And so, you know, we went with the more or less flat roofs. We're bringing some wood tones, hardy, vinyl, metal, is where we're at today. I think this is a much better place to start and actually discuss the architecture of this before the last time it was just all fillers. So really here tonight just to ask opinions. If there's things that, you know, you guys would like to see differently, then let me know, and we can maybe work on that for the next month.
Hey, Steve, I've got a question. So with this sketch here, is it sort of drawn to scale where the wall to the immediate left is sort of within scale of like maybe between the second and third floors?
Yep.
Okay.
No
As
news
far
is
as-
good news, or what do we got?
As far as the materials, I like everything, but I sort of don't like the metal so much. I don't know. I think the metal will get a little dated over time, but all the other materials look fine.
Anybody else agree with?
I like it a lot, Steve. I think it's a big improvement. I love the black and white contrast. I love the natural wood with it. And I like the metal. So it's a go for me.
We all have, yeah, different preferences.
I mean, it's everything gets dated. I mean, you know,
That's true.
it's just,
Don't
it's a sign of the times. I mean, I think it's a great industrial look.
The gray middle is the
Metal.
same metal as the black outside parts, or just different color, but the same material?
That's hardy, isn't it? The black is hardy.
That it'll either be hardy or vinyl and all, and then you'll see here we run a band of metal coming down as well.
The gray on the
Yes.
west? Okay.
It'd be nice to put more transoms in there instead of just on the third floor.
So we
I like-
have them.
Oh, okay.
Going back to Chris's point, the only thing that you're going to see, and the issue is that this is where the bathroom is and the bedroom. And so,
I have transom in my bedroom. I love it.
yeah. So that's over top of beds. That's in the bathroom.
Do the bathroom ones open up?
No.
No.
Michael says he likes the industrial look in contrast to the buildings that have been built. Yeah, I agree. I like the black and white
Yeah.
contrast too.
Like
So-
the variation of the color on the
It-
front and the variation of the offsets on the front, you know, some things sticking out, some things not.
Do you have sidewalk entrances on the first floor? Yep.
Sorry, Don, I'm not really following the question.
Oh, I said, do you have sidewalk entrances on the first floor? You
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Steve, were you guys still thinking of like possibly an entrance, like to break up the wall a little bit from 11th, like would there be some sort of entrance from 11th here in the middle, or?
So we
Is it just
haven't, so we haven't looked at that quite yet. We were mainly just focusing on this piece. And then we have to get into what the grades actually are. We're just starting the process with our civil to understand elevations and where that, you know, when we cut this building down, where does the wall and the other side of it sit as opposed to the sidewalks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How close are the buildings from the northern edge of the building to the wall itself? Will they get, you know, some sunlight in the first and second floors, even though they're,
Yeah,
like,
I want to
north-facing of
say
this?
I want to say they're 6 to 8 feet off of the wall.
Okay.
Is it
So
possible?
it's not clear looking at this picture, and you know, maybe this is tagging on to what was just been said, that, you know, a person could walk down the street, not have to cross the street to walk past this building, and then, you know, to stay on a sidewalk.
So
So is there going to be continuation of sidewalk, you know, through?
yeah, so 11th Avenue and Grant stay exactly as is. So the whole perimeter has sidewalks around it.
Okay. I guess that just wasn't really clear from that one view.
You're just saying that in this view, there's not a sidewalk south of the driveway entrance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it looks like, you know, you'd have to cross the street if you wanted a contiguous sidewalk.
No, there's sidewalk there. It's
Okay.
just screened out. All this, we'll keep the same sidewalk that we have today.
Okay, yeah, I think that's really important that the neighborhood stay walkable. I mean, if we're gonna build a nice building.
Yeah.
like this.
Absolutely.
Can you go back to the other view?
Yeah.
Just as a learning opportunity for me, would it be possible in a building like this theoretically to have the first floor entrances be facing out rather than in the corridor?
So you're
Or
saying
both.
coming in here?
Yeah, like going into your house, you know, right at the front rather than going to the side door in a stairwell. That's not, you know, it's not like it's necessary for you to go into a stairwell to enter your house on the first floor. It is on the second floor.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could look at that with the elevations and grades and everything because of ADA access. And a lot, like our first floor units where we have ADA, that's where it's coming from. And so that's a lot of the reason why we're having to go through the corridor, because our ADA access uses this ramp as a way of doing that. But we could look at that. And then the other piece is, you know, everybody wanting to have a gated area for their patio because they let their dogs out and everything like that. And so needing to create a true gate, and what does that do with the furniture? But it shouldn't really matter because the door is right in front of it. So we could look at, you know.
Yeah, you can still have a gate, right? If it's a front door. I just
Right.
think it really has that apartment complex feel. And if you had some real entrances that people were using daily rather than their balcony, it would help mitigate that a little bit.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So, yeah, I sounds like people are generally, you know, I think people like the industrial contrast. It's sleek and modern. It speaks to the history and the legacy of the site better than the massing we saw last month. So, more comments? Laura, did you say anything? Curious as to your thoughts.
The only thing I would pitch in is when you're thinking about names, I think it's better not to name it after stuff that's demolished or like gone, because that's just sad and bad juju. You know, it's like the suburban development's called Hidden Oaks, and it's because there's no fucking trees left. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, rice patty's probably fine for these renderings, but it would be odd.
In the suburbs, the oaks truly are hidden.
Yeah. Underground.
Cool.
We have 31 people and not any more comments on this.
Just that good, I guess.
Elizabeth, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay, so you'll come back next month, Steve?
Yeah.
Was there another building to the south of this too?
So there's
Isn't that where the
there's
pool is?
same buildings.
Okay, this is the only new construction?
I have a
Yeah.
question.
And then the rest of it is the old ice house.
Okay.
And
Sarah?
that's the community room that stays and everything.
Are you going to do an industrial look on that also? Like
We're not
paint it
doing,
to-
we're not doing anything to that besides cutting in a few holes for doors and cleaning it up.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yep.
I'm just wondering where the parking is gonna be.
So you can see here, we're keeping the entrance furthest north by 11th Avenue.
Yeah.
There's parking in between these two buildings. And then the other pieces, I mean, I could, sorry, I don't have that up right now, but where the current main structure sits,
To the south of the pool, right?
to the south, yeah.
So there's enough parking for everyone in there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We do one per bed parking, so.
all right.
Wait, I
So
appreciate
you were only showing one rendering because if there's two buildings, but you were just showing the one because they're identical. Is
Correct.
that right? Okay. And then somebody messaged me, it was Jacob Yount, I think, last month, about the small space, the small brick structure. Was that the actual ice house?
No, so that's the small structure that you see here where, can everybody see my mouse?
Yep.
Mhm. Yes.
So we're still just holding that as a placeholder, trying to figure out what we can do with it. We're hoping that we can, I think it'd be a really cool little coffee window, pastry kind of thing. But at the same time, we gotta work I mean, it's literally, I think, a total of 600 square feet, if that, between first and second floor. So we have to see if that's a viable option, but would love to potentially keep that open for an amenity to the community.
Okay, yeah. So I responded to him last month with this article that I just put in the chat about like micro retail units that
Yeah.
they did with like sheds. And so, yeah, that it doesn't take a lot of space for a small entrepreneur to get their business started or pilot a new idea with a really low risk, low cost type of opportunity. So I think that I think a lot of people in the community would value a really low point of entry for a temporary type of space, 6 months, a year, that would be cheap, subsidized, whatever, to let, vulnerable or marginalized kind of people enter the market in this type of experimental space.
Totally agree.
So next month, will you have more renderings on the community center too, or is that kind of done?
I mean, that's more or less finished.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, from what we showed last time, nothing has changed as far as that building structure itself. I just know that these two buildings were the main emphasis on what we do with it. So I wanted to get this in front of you and have the focus mainly be this. I'm happy to come back and do a full package next month that just, everybody can get their eyes on, hey, this is the finished product. When I say finished, this is what we're going with and bidding out and everything. This is, how we're leaving the community center. I know that small corner building, I probably won't have any updates on, potential vendors or anything like that. That's going to probably just be a, getting our architects and working with the city as it relates to zoning and code and make sure that we can get something in there for that is kind of our next step. So maybe I'll have a little bit of an update on that piece.
Okay, well, any more comments for Thrive? We don't have much else on the agenda, so if you have anything else for Thrive not relating to this project, maybe take advantage of that now. I want to know what the timing on this, maybe construction would be. What do you think, Steve?
Hopefully end of the year. But I'm gonna be honest, lumber prices are insane right now. And a lot of people are holding on construction until start of 22. All, charts and everything are projecting that lumber prices are going to hit a ceiling come September, October of 21. So with that, hopefully it declines as fast as it's shot up. It has gone up $700 a linear foot or whatever, what 1,000 board feet, or I don't know how they do it. It's gone up $700 in bundle in a month and a half. And so it's outrageous right now. So I don't know if we will break ground then, but I think that we'll be through this.
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, you're good.
Matt muted me, so
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Somebody did.
Somebody did not agree with you.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully get through the whole city process with it and be able to start by the end of the year. But my guess is that it might be a spring break ground timeline just because of lumber prices.
That makes
And
sense. Any idea on the timeline, the length of that the construction will take?
This is about a 12-month build. We should be able to have the apartments done in that 10 to 12 months period at the same time doing the community center.
That's kind of where I was thinking, looking at it. So.
Yep.
Is it 48 units total?
48 units.
Yeah. I mean, I would personally like to see more. We have thousands less people than we used to, so we need to rebuild our population. So I'd love to see something bigger, taller, more dense, but I get that this is what you're moving forward with. Does anyone want to give us an update on Joyce Hughes Park?
Yeah, I can do that. So we just got from the landscape architects, we've been working with them to see what they can source. That's been the biggest issue is, sourcing the plants, and that's in their group that's going to be doing it. We just got that. Matt's actually here.
We just got it just earlier this week, and so we're working on nailing them down to a schedule. So then when we, within the next 2 weeks, we'd like to get something with the community, with the design committee. So once we can sit down, we can have a definitive schedule and something that's actually realistic. So we can respond to those type of questions. So we're close. So if those that are on the design committee, expect an email here soon. We're meeting at the latter part of this week to nail that down.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know, Jacob, if you knew that there's a subcommittee on Joyce Hughes Park that I'm not involved with. So I look forward to updates on that too. So any more questions before I move on? Going once.
I
Okay.
have one quick one. This is Donna here. Are the floor plans the same as the floor plans that already exist?
For the most part, I mean, we've tweaked them and changed a bit, but not anything that's substantial.
Yeah. So I didn't know if this was going to be like a more luxury apartment since it has its own pool, or are your other tenants able to use both pools?
Yes.
See what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah. The community center will be our main leasing office for the entire development.
I feel like community center might be a
Thank
miss.
you. For
Our
your
private
community.
club for the amenity spaces of the, yeah, I know.
All right, we can wrap it up. Thanks, Steve, and we'll move on now to the discussion
guys.
of a new subcommittee. We just love subcommittees on the Peerless Development at 50 East 7th. We're kind of trying something new because the status quo just isn't really productive. So we have found a really amazing and talented facilitator from Denison Place, Kathy Fox, who's extremely experienced. And she's offered to facilitate a unique process for this committee to handle the Peerless Development. And I'm going to really let her take it away. I don't want to taint it with the wrong words. So Kathy, if you could go ahead.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Fox, and I live in Denison Place. In Denison Place, we've had several new developments proposed. in recent years, several of which have not been exactly what the neighbors had hoped for. And so we've been using a process where we create a subcommittee of interested people in the neighborhood, make sure that before the subcommittee starts its work, we have gathered feedback from anybody in the neighborhood who has concerns and comments and suggestions, get all those written down. And then the subcommittee meets in a focused way to prioritize those concerns, talk with the developer about potential solutions to those concerns, and try to reach an agreement that is beneficial to the neighborhood while still allowing new development to happen. But in a way, the new development would happen in a way that the neighbors' concerns get addressed. And what we have found to be successful in doing this is to make sure that all the agreements that the developer agrees to get written down in a memorandum of understanding that the developer signs and that the neighborhood organization signs. And then that document is the roadmap going forward. So, and essentially what the neighborhood gets out of this is resolution of the concerns to the degree that it's possible to do so. So I'm not going to suggest that everything is everything that everybody would like to see, but that the working group feels comfortable recommending to your full housing committee as a reasonable resolution of the concerns. And then in exchange, what the developer gets is they know exactly what they're supposed to do. They know what they're agreeing to. It's written down, and they look at it and say, okay, yes, we're willing to do these things in exchange for having the neighborhood support of the new zoning that's being requested. So that's what Matt has asked me to do, and I've volunteered to help with. And so what we'd like to do today is start with, there's kind of 3 steps we want to do today. The first one is we're going to put up on the screen a list of the concerns that have already been expressed by the neighbors in prior meetings, because there's been a number of meetings where people have had the opportunity to raise concerns. And we have a really long list of all those comments. What I've done is gone through that whole list and looked at, okay, 6 people had a concern. It seems to be the same concern, so we will list it on the sheet once, not 6 times. And I've categorized it into 10 groupings of concerns. I'd like to go through all those, make sure that we've captured them correctly, and also to see if there are any additional concerns that we have not captured yet. Then we also want to ask for volunteers for a working group. And the working group would need to commit to at least 3 meetings. The suggestion is that they would be the next 3 Monday evenings at 7 p.m. I was told that didn't interfere, at least with Wineland Park meetings that would be happening those next 3 weeks. So we would meet for 3 weeks. We would have an agenda of what we're hoping to accomplish at that meeting. And we would be asking the developer to come to those meetings with concrete proposals to address concerns that are being captured in this list that we're working on. So the goal would be to work towards solutions to the neighborhood's concerns. And then, you know, so we want to form the working group, and we want to solidify that meeting schedule for at least the 3 meetings that I've mentioned. And then the next step would be, assuming that the neighborhood and the developer are reaching reasonable solutions to the concerns, we would record all that, get it into a memorandum of understanding. So that's how the process would work. So does anybody have a question about the process I've described? Let's see, there's some things in the chat. No. And oh, someone's asking about Peerless. So I, as a facilitator who's done this before, my suggestion to Matt was that at this meeting, it would be more productive to have the neighborhood solidify its concerns and not have Peerless here this time. But they will be involved in future meetings. So they are not here because I suggested it would be better to wait until we have the whole list of concerns, and we can then start to work with them to resolve them.
When did you want me to put the rendering up, Kathy?
Oh, yeah. So, well, I just want to see. So I see Elizabeth has a comment. Yes, Peerless was not at the meeting last month either, and that was, we were sort of starting to have this conversation about a facilitated process, and I think, Matt, they contacted you and said they really wanted to wait and not come last month. So it's not that they're trying to hide anything. They are very anxious to try to have a productive conversation. Okay,
Hey,
Michael.
Kathy,
Yes.
that isn't, I mean, I appreciate that they have the best of intentions, but at the meeting 2 months ago on Monday night, in front of the zoning commission, they're like, oh yes, we're going to totally talk to the neighborhood. And they didn't. I mean, it's sort of like they said they were going to, and then they sort of dropped off the face of the earth.
Well, I wasn't involved in the conversation then, but my understanding is they didn't drop off. My understanding is they contacted your committee chair and said, we think we have to do some more work before we come back. That's my understanding of what happened. So, so let's see, we have a couple more questions.
This is Roger.
Yes, if the church would like to be involved in the working group, absolutely, you can volunteer to be involved. And yeah, so Michael Wilkos is saying that the King and High project, you know, at the southwest corner of King and High was a long, painful process. That is true. And we were not able to convince that developer to work with the neighborhood until they got a no vote from the University Area Commission. So we wasted, and they wasted, you know, a year or more just trying to push through what they wanted without listening to the neighborhood. After they got a no vote from UAC and a no vote from the University Impact District Review Board, then they were willing to talk with us. And what we want to do is avoid that if at all possible. That's not good for anybody. It's not good for the neighbors to have to come to meeting after meeting after meeting for 2 years. It's not good for the developer. You know, it's not good for anybody. So my hope is, and I'm optimistic about this, that that this developer does want to try to resolve issues, and I do believe that that's the case. And what we have to do is test that belief on my part, and take a list of concerns to them and talk with them about ways to address those concerns and see if they live up to my hope and expectation that they are going to be a partner in a conversation about addressing concerns. So, other questions about the process that we're talking about?
Yes, this is Riley Gooseby. And like Mrs. Elizabeth just spoke of, at the last meeting where they were speaking about the rice paddy, I was still on and they didn't realize that I was still there. And there was things brought up that at the end of the meeting saying, well, at the last minute, Peerless was allowed to bring in information which was supposed to be brought in weeks in advance. And so the committee sat there and said, oh yeah, I know why they did that. I'm pretty sure that. But when I asked, well, why did they do that? Or why did you allow that to do that? I never got a straight answer. So it makes me question many of the people that sit around this table making those decisions. Because again, why would you allow them to tank the process? And it was spoke of Joyce Hughes several times during that conversation. Joyce Hughes was one who called it right down the middle, right down the line. And that's not happening right now.
Okay.
So again, I question the integrity of many of those people sitting there around the table.
Yeah, so I'm not in a position to address the prior processes that.
I understand that.
Yeah, and so what I'd like to do, I understand your concern, and we can add that to the list, that we want to make sure that the process going forward is transparent and clearly understood.
Okay, and I hate to interrupt you, but transparency is a great word that you use. And instead of being opaque, why don't the board members who was there at that meeting please explain to us why they allowed Peerless to make the comments and add additional information to the meeting that they weren't allowed to? Because you got to be transparent if you want to win our trust.
Okay, and I'm going to just put a little time out here for a second. I'm not absolutely sure if you're speaking about the Area Commission Zoning Committee, or I'm not sure, but we can. So
they know.
Just a moment. What we're trying to do right now is create a process going forward. And yes, there are things that happened in the past that people are not sure about and don't have full trust in. And that's our starting point. We need to start going forward from there by recording all the concerns and making sure we have a good list of what those are. And then we are going to establish a process that everybody understands and everybody can have confidence in. Now, this process is for Wineland Park. It's, we can have a conversation with the University Area Commission Zoning Committee. They are an independent body, independent of Wineland Park Community Civic Association. We can tell them that we have concerns about something that they have done that didn't seem to be following the published process, and we can ask them to, be courteous about how they do things going forward and follow their procedures properly. So we can do that.
Okay.
But we won't get anything accomplished.
I understand that. You had opportunity to speak. You ought to let me speak, because you did say those who have questions, please ask them. And so I think it's my opportunity to speak now.
Okay, so please tell me your question, and I would be happy to.
The great Winston Churchill once said, a man with no past has no future. So if we don't deal with the things that happened in the past, then that's going to tank the future. And again, there are people sitting there that was at that meeting, know exactly what I'm talking about. So why don't you give them the opportunity to address it?
So I'm not a mind reader. I don't know who you're referring to.
You don't have to read their mind. They can speak for themselves.
Well, I don't know who you're talking about, and I don't know. So I'm gonna do another timeout here. I'm gonna ask if anyone else has any questions, because I do want to record your concern. We have a document where we have recorded the concerns that have been expressed so far. We're going to add your concern to that list. But before we go to that list, I want to see if anyone else has a question about
My question. Why can't they answer my question? Just give a simple response to it. That's all
They're
I'm
not
asking.
here.
Who is it?
Peerless is
don't
not
know
at this meeting.
It was not Peerless. You were speaking of the rice paddy last week, that discussion. That same group that just left Thrive, that just left. At the very end of that meeting, I was listening to the whole thing, and I spoke to it on that meeting. I addressed it, and I asked, why would you allow them to add information or to this agenda that wasn't supposed to be there? And you said to me, or whoever it was at that point in time, well, they shouldn't have done it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We shouldn't have done that. But again, it won't happen again. So why would I have trust in this? That wasn't Wyland Park. That was Wyland Park subcommittee that was speaking there. That wasn't had nothing to do with the area commission.
So
okay, and I wasn't.
Go ahead, Chris. Chris, go ahead.
Who was present? Can you list a name? Because the Civic Association, we weren't present at that University Area Commission.
So who's on the committee that spoke about the rice paddy? Some of you got to be in there because you listened to it, the presentation today. So you was on that call. So do you not recall me?
Yes,
do
sir.
you not
I know
recall
what
me
you're
making
saying. Yes, sir. I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right then. See, I ain't lost my mind.
No, sir, you have not. It was at the end of the call, and people were hanging up, and they thought that the people from 7th Avenue and I guess some of the other community residents were not on the call, and they basically were just talking about how they had just went through it with us and that they didn't want to deal with us anymore, and they were going to leave it to the governance people.
So Tanya, do you know who these people are? Do we have names?
I do not know the names. I'm so sorry.
Do you know what firm they represented?
Yeah, it was Peerless.
Okay.
When
So
we had the last conversation about 7th Avenue.
So again, we don't have Peerless here. We're just
Right. They're not here.
We want to talk within ourselves so that we have, you know,
yeah, but
unified.
He wants to know if the facilitator basically has been brought up to speed about the tensions and the passions and the feelings involved with this project.
And yes, I would say I have a good idea of that. I've attended a couple of the meetings that are in reference, but not the one this most recent one that's being discussed.
Right, so I'm just going to ask you, please don't dismiss it because it's very
absolutely not.
passionate.
So at this point, what I'm going to do, I understand there are a lot of concerns. I'm going to ask Matt to do a screen share and put up the list of concerns that we have gathered and put into categories so that we can go through them and make sure that we understand the concerns and that we capture any additional concerns. And the first additional concern that I'm going to ask to be added to the list is that there's a concern about having a known process that is followed, and that Peerless will agree to do that, and that we will ask the University Area Commission Zoning Committee to tell us their process and follow it, and this committee, this full committee, whatever your housing committee process is, we would ask that be followed as well. So all right, so as I said, we have taken all the concerns. Yeah, thank you for enlarging that. I think that's better. We have taken all the concerns that were expressed during the prior meetings and put them in categories. So I'm going to give you an example. The first one is density. And at the University Area Commission Zoning Committee, it was expressed that this property is planned in the University District Plan for low density, and the proposal is not consistent with the planning document. So all that's doing is recording. That was the concern that was expressed. I'm gonna, let's scroll down a little bit, Matt, and I'm gonna highlight the categories. Actually, go back up just so I can get, okay, so the second category is height and massing, and as you can see, there are quite a few under that group, including shading out properties adjacent and having it too tall, adjacent to 7th Avenue Church, having it too tall compared to the housing to the north and to the east, and the concern that the rationale that Peerless expressed for, well, we're only a half a block from High Street, therefore we should get the same zoning that High Street gets, we should get the same height as High Street, that was firmly pushed back against, rejected as an appropriate rationale. So that's the second category. The next category is home values, and that concern was that a big building like this will reduce property values of adjacent nearby homes that are small in comparison. So that we're recording that concern, we're going to look at that. The fourth category is that there's a lot of different concerns. This was probably one of the longest categories. Too many changes in the neighborhood, in some cases too quickly. So gentrification, displacement of current residents. Is there actually going to be affordable housing in the proposal? Who's going to lose their housing because of this project, and what's going to happen, and can something be done to alleviate that situation? There was a concern expressed that Wineland Park and the University District should not have to solve all the housing shortage problems for the whole region. There's concern about changing the character of Euclid Avenue by putting a large building immediately south of that. The cumulative impact of lots of changes, because your neighborhood is getting a lot of development proposals. You've already experienced a lot of development proposals, and you've got a lot of new ones on the boards right now. There was a concern expressed about needing more homeowners and not renters. I'm not sure that's I'm not sure that 100% of your residents would share that concern. That's something we'll have to explore. Again, avoiding radical change and holding meetings with the neighborhood. That was clearly expressed. And I'd like to add, and I think maybe this category works, I would like to capture the concern that was expressed about having a clearly understood process that is followed. So, Matt, are you able to add to this document?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so if you could add that as letter I under the category we just talked about. Clearly understood process that is followed by all parties.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
My question was that most of the people in the neighborhood would like more homeowners than apartments. That's a big thing over here.
Okay, great.
Too many big development. And two, it doesn't have on there that I said that they should back the building up a little bit and have more parking for 7th Avenue Baptist Church.
So parking is a separate category, and if we have not captured your concern fully, we can add to it. Okay. So the next category, let's see.
Design.
Okay, so and thank you for clarifying that there are many people who share the concern about needing more homeowners, not more renters, because I wasn't sure.
I'll second that.
Okay, great. That's very helpful.
And the other thing was they didn't want all Ohio State children. They wanted workers in the buildings too.
Okay, I think let's see. Matt, let's go back up to, we've got it where we're talking about gentrification that's under change. Let's add to that. Would like to see housing for the workforce and not just students. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
great.
people that live there now, would they have a chance to come back into the home, into the new building? That was
Right, right. And that's under displacement. So.
Okay.
And also families, not just, you know, when they talk about micro units, those are fine for single people, but people with families and people with children, I mean, really can't live in a micro unit. So creating an environment where families can be part of the fabric, I think is important too, or at least should be on the list of things to
I
talk
think,
about.
yeah, workforce and families, good. And then where we have not just students, I think that's referring to college students.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, college students. Okay, great. All right, so let's go back down. And this is great. What you all are doing, this is exactly what we need to do, because trying to, you know, take notes at a meeting and not necessarily capturing the full concern, it's very difficult. And that's why we're going to go through this and make sure we have it correctly and completely. Okay. So we talked about displacement, Wineland Park and University District not having to solve the whole housing shortage. We clarified absolutely the concern is needing more homeowners, not just more renters. Radical change, meeting with the neighborhoods, clearly understood process that is followed by all parties. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through the list. If I'm missing something or misunderstanding something, then, you know, please let me know. Okay, so category 5 is design. The project that was shown previously turned its back on the neighborhood. The neighborhood facing facades need to be interesting and not blank walls. The inspiration images that were shown did not relate to the historic architecture in Wineland Park. The proposal was too boxy. And there was a concern expressed about not having balconies overlooking yards and houses to the north. And actually, Matt, this may be a good time to jump out of this list and quickly show the design that they showed a couple months ago. Yeah, just so we want to refresh everybody's memory about what they showed, and then we want to make sure we've captured. Okay, so this was their, I think this was the second proposal. Is that right, Matt?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this was their second proposal, and there were some things that Wineland Park neighbors liked better, and some things that you did not. And we'll go back to that list in a minute, but I just want you to see this again, just to refresh everybody's memory. This is what we were looking at, and people liked some aspects of it, like, you know, having the street interaction on 7th Avenue was good, but the height of the building next to the church was not good. So, okay, and Elizabeth, you're asking a question. Please show from all. I'm not sure I'm understanding. Oh, all angles?
From all angles. From
Oh,
all
okay.
Because I think last time they didn't actually have a picture of what their wall to, like, what was going to be facing Euclid, the alley between the Euclid Avenue neighbors.
The north side of the building.
And do we have that in this set, Matt?
Oh, I only have 2 slides in here.
Okay, so we're not going to be able to do that today.
Because they didn't create it.
We're going to ask them to bring that to the next meeting so that we have something to look at with the working group. Okay?
Okay, before you leave the screen,
Yes.
you see the brown, white, and the black, and then you see the church there. I'm the
Right.
one who asked, could we make that brown building and white building and black building scooted back over some, dense it more, to have parking there for 7th Avenue Baptist Church?
Okay, so when we go back to the list of concerns, there is a section on parking. And if I have not captured your idea completely, then we will make sure it gets on there.
Okay.
Okay, So, okay, so just again, the idea here is they didn't have a lot to show at that prior meeting. We are going to ask them to have more to show before the next meeting. That
I
is,
thought we were supposed to do a sit down with them at the church. I thought that's what the last thing that we asked for before the meeting ended.
And I opened the doors and said, you're welcome to come here at 7th Avenue. In fact, we'll meet you, not meet you there, we'll beat you there.
Amen.
Okay.
That was what's said. So
Okay.
that comes back to do that.
Okay, so I don't know if I'll have to think about how to make that work if we want to do that instead of the process that I've proposed. So let's go back to the list now and let's make sure we capture these ideas. So there is a suggestion that there be a meeting at the church.
Yeah.
Okay. I think.
New category? Yeah.
Yeah, make it a new category, 11. Meeting at the church. And who is intended to be at that meeting? Representatives from the church and representatives from the neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, and the purpose of that meeting is to do what?
See them face to face and answer our questions. And if we have to walk around to check and they tell us exactly where stuff is, so it'd be plain and not a story like it was on High Street when they told us they were gonna give us parking. They were just gonna do this, they was gonna do that and fell through. So this could be maybe tape it or whatever we need to do so that we have it in writing or tape or whatever, so there won't be no more stories this time.
Okay, so here's, we're going to record this and then I want to come back to it because I want to talk about this proposed method of trying to get accountability versus a different method that we had talked about earlier in this meeting. So let's go back up. I want to make sure.
We have a hand raised. Do you want to address that?
Oh, let's.
That's me, Michael Nelligan, and I was just going to say that it sounded like this category would be a discussion of the proposed process going forward, and I think Kathy just captured that quite ably. So
okay, so yeah, okay, so yeah, we need to have a process that everybody is in agreement we want to do and pursue that process, and we don't want to have two different processes going on because that's going to create confusion. Okay, so design. Let's, we just took a quick look at their second proposal, that one image that they had. Are there any other design questions before we move down to the next grouping of concerns?
I had so many design issues, but I didn't bring a single one of them up because this project is so out of scale and so inconsistent with all of our current zoning.
Right.
I was like, what it looks like is the least of our problems.
Okay, so if we go back to height and massing.
And so I sort of think design needs to be sort of it needs to be its own category, but with an asterisk that we can't even talk about it until we deal with these zoning and massing issues, because.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So under design, let's add letter F and let's put many design issues will be dependent on first resolving the height and massing. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Great.
Can we go
Okay.
back to number 2 for a second?
Yes.
So as stated in number 2 that, I don't know if somebody wants to scroll up so everyone can see what we're talking about. That 4 to 5 story building considered relevant to this project, but actually in the meeting which I attended, where they were present, Peerless was present. I said that I thought a 3-story building would be, ideal for that, not a 4 to 5 story. And my idea behind that was that I absolutely do support increasing density. I agree with Matt on that. I think Matt is more aggressive on that than me, though. I want to accomplish that with appropriate step ups. So if you have 2 stories all around you, then an appropriate step up is 1 more story. And, it's hard to argue with 1 more story. It almost always fits in well, looks intentional, blends well. And yet you are increasing density. You're going from a 2-story to a 3-story, So I think, we want to do it, but we don't want to do it recklessly or in a way that sort of ghettoizes the neighborhood around the new building.
Okay, so this 2F with the 4 to 5 story building, someone made this comment.
Okay.
I don't know who. So what we're going to do is add your comment. And we're going to put an alternative viewpoint is that 3 stories is appropriate because there are 2-story buildings adjacent to the property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they appear to want to build very close to the property line. So an appropriate step up would be 1 story in that.
Okay. Now, the current building is 3 stories. The current,
Oh, is it?
yes, the current
Oh, it's 2
apartments
stories.
that are there are 3 stories. So they're already at that height. So, and let's just put a parenthetical here, Matt, that the current apartment buildings on the site are 3 stories. Just, this is a point of reference.
Well, that proves it. 3 stories blends right in.
Okay, great. All right, so we have captured 2 differing viewpoints here about height, and I think that's good. Okay, now, let's see, where were we? Design. Okay. If someone else has an additional concern about design and you think of it in a minute when we've moved on, that's okay. You can ask us to go back. I'd like to move on to the next category, which is pedestrian friendly on 7th Avenue. So we have first Wineland Park, and this was expressed several times in several different meetings. Wineland Park prides itself on its front porches and street life, and there's a desire by the neighbors to see more of that in this proposed project. Second, want to see a lot of interaction between the building and the street. So, not blank walls, not just street wall, but actual places where there's interaction. The third one was to eliminate the curb cut on 7th Avenue and that parking access should be from the alley. Now, I know there are people who are concerned about the alley. We have a whole category for that. We're going to get to that. So part of the challenge is that we're going to have to balance things, right? Some people don't want a curb cut on 7th Avenue. Some people don't want more traffic in the alley. You've got to weigh how are you going to deal with that. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to capture these ideas and concerns, and then at the working group is going to start addressing that. Okay, let's see. Someone has, Michael Wilkos is saying Wineland Park is 90% renters and OSU students comprise a large percentage of our residents. So renters and OSU students should be included in the conversation if we are concerned about equity. Okay, Michael, that's a great comment. I'm going to charge you with finding some volunteers from that category to be involved. Elizabeth, okay, the current 3-story building is set back from the street and the alley, so its mass seems less. That's a very good observation.
Yeah, we hardly notice it.
Okay.
Offset, the higher you go, the bigger the offset should
be. Okay. All right. Then I'm sorry, someone, I can't see who's asking to speak, but please go ahead.
You saying that equity plays a big part in this. What about many of the people who were at the last couple of meetings didn't know anything about this meeting? You don't hear their ideas and what they have to say, and you're going to move on forward, as you just said, and you're going to miss what they had, their input.
Well, we captured all the input from all the prior meetings, and
But you have many of those people that are not present now. Their input now could be more beneficial than what they said in the past.
Are you saying we need to do a better job?
No, what I'm saying is,
who
how
needs to
many
be at these
people knew of this meeting? Because from what I looked in the email here, it said it was like new, just popped up. So I get an impression that only a few people knew about it.
okay, we're gonna add that. Matt, can you scroll to the bottom? We had started a new category about process, and I think we're gonna I think 11 is gonna be process suggestions in bold, and then we're gonna have some sub points. Yeah, A, yep. Okay, and B, under process suggestions, the suggestion has been made that there are people who attended earlier meetings who are not at today's meeting, and we may need to see if they have additional suggestions or concerns.
Figure out how we can make sure everyone knows about the meetings in advance and can plan to attend them.
Okay, let's add a number or a letter C to this. Meeting notices for Wineland Park, well, WPCCA, Housing Committee, to be sent out earlier. I don't know how you do your process. I thought it was a standing meeting, but I'm not.
We have recurring meetings which have been the same day of the month, same time for, Matt, can you recall like how far back? I mean, it's been many years that these meetings are recurring. We do rely that our residents, advertise to their neighbors that, when the meetings are scheduled, and anyone is welcome to come. They don't have to be part of the neighborhood. It could be any interested party.
Okay.
May I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Pastor Roby, and I think that concern is very vital, because had not our Wineland Park president sent me an email last night concerning the change or this new addition to the monthly housing meeting, we wouldn't have been here. And so what happened last night, I received the email late, and I had to quickly get in contact with my team and then get communications out this afternoon to make sure that our church knew about this. And the sad part of this is everyone has my email. So, this could have been avoided if President Long hadn't sent me a electronic. Our church wouldn't know anything about it, and we wouldn't known about it. So there has to be accountability. I know that we all have different views and have taken different positions on this project. Things have been said that shouldn't have been said, but the reality is we're gonna have to come to some type of resolve. So we might as well try to work together.
Very well said, Pastor. Thank you. In support of that comment, I'd like to add a letter D to process suggestions, and let's make sure that the church, and we will find out exactly who all from the church needs to get the notices, but the church representatives need to get notices about the meetings. And let's, in parentheses, let's put the church will let us know which specific representatives they would like to be on the notice list, so that we don't have any issue about that. Okay, let's see. Where were we, Matt? We were looking at pedestrian friendly. Okay, and there was I don't think we captured D, about the sidewalk being a safe and consistent pedestrian thoroughfare. So so there was that was expressed, I think, by several different people about the importance of the sidewalk and the pedestrian orientation of the sidewalk.
That was especially when the original design that was shown was to have the curb cut coming through 7
Right.
with significantly more, not enough parking, but significantly more cars coming through.
Right.
So
Right.
again, the lack of a really good plan from Peerless is really making it hard for us to, or it's hard for me to sort of envision moving forward, because we just have such incomplete information. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. So, Elizabeth, I appreciate that. And that's always the way these kinds of processes are going to be at the beginning, because we don't have that dialogue established in a positive, productive way yet. But that's what we're going to try to do. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me. And I want to actually acknowledge that was a very brave thing to say. And thank you for saying it. We all need to pay attention to, why are we feeling hesitant about this? And it's a big step just to be able to acknowledge that. So that's good. All right. Let's move on to 7, issues with the alley. So there was concern expressed about making sure there will not be any trash problems in the alley. The alley is narrow. How will alley access services and traffic work if we're adding more trucks and cars to the alley than there may be at this time? Question about whether the alley could be widened. A concern about alley pavement not being in good condition. And I think I may have already sort of mentioned this, but trucks in the alley seems to be a concern. And so all of these things with the alley would be looked at. And some of the solutions may be operational, and some of them may be design or how things get built or laid out. So sometimes, like this point about the alley pavement not being in good condition, sometimes the city will require a developer to upgrade alley infrastructure if they're going to be putting more demand on it. And we will ask that question about whether they will be doing that or not. And it's certainly something that could be discussed with the city as well. Okay, any other issues with the alley that we need to capture? And let's see. All right. Okay. Hearing none.
Kathy, can I say
Yes.
something? Yeah,
Sure.
I don't think this is actually just, I think it should be point F is trash, because trash has been a big problem with big buildings in Wineland Park in the past.
Is that covered by A?
It was such a big problem, and I have like a phone full of photographs of trash, and I just don't want to do. I just don't want to do that again.
Okay, and I get it. And I was in many of those meetings where you showed the photographs of the trash. And, our neighborhood joined with Wineland Park to help come up with an operational solution to that at Uncommon. And I hope Uncommon is living up to that. I hope you're not having dumpsters sitting in the alley with trash blowing around now. If you are, we have a remedy.
We have that all the time. every day, 7 days a week.
Okay, then let's, Matt, let's go to the bottom of this list. And it's a separate issue, so it's going to be number 12. And it's going to be initiate a conversation with the owners of the Uncommon about the trash not being managed in the way that they agreed to manage it. And this is, and so if anyone has, if you have current pictures of the trash, so what the Uncommon agreed to do was not pull the dumpsters out of their building until the day that the trash service was to pick them up. And as soon as the trash service picked up the trash, the dumpsters were to be put away. So they would never be out more than one day, not even in 24 hours, just during the day when the service would be there.
I think they
if the dumpsters, if the service did not come and pick up the trash on the day they were assigned to, and it got somehow delayed or rescheduled, the dumpsters were to go back into the building overnight and come back out the next day. So if that is not what is happening, then we all need to reach back out to the Uncommon building manager and say, here is the memorandum of understanding you signed, your company signed. Here's what you agreed to do about the trash. And here are pictures showing that you're not doing that. So I'm very serious about this. If what they agreed to do is not happening and trash from the dumpsters of the Uncommon is causing a trash problem in the alley, we have a remedy to fix that, and we should. If it's other people putting trash in the alley, then we have to have a different conversation, and we should try to solve what is causing it. So anyway.
One thing I'm not sure is captured here in relation to trash. The reason we're having or ever had a problem with trash with the Uncommon is that they built that building straight up to the alley, leaving no place but the alley itself in which to put their dumpsters. And what I want to see happen, I think everyone will probably agree, with this new building is that the offsets are sufficient to handle two things: that the step up in height looks natural. That's one reason to have an offset. And the other is that dumpsters don't have to be placed in the alley. They can be placed off the alley.
Okay, so let's add an F to this issues with the alley. F is prefer to have a setback from the alley line before the building wall. And then G is storage and screening of dumpsters.
Awesome. Michael and Elgin, your hands up.
Yes, I was just going to speak to the dumpsters from Uncommon. They actually have been generally pretty good about getting the dumpsters out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and getting them back in after they're picked up. I'm not, I will fess, keeping huge track of how much spillage there is from their dump.
Yeah, I think that was the essence of the comment, is that we're finding trash in the alley, every day.
Okay.
And some of that is presumed to come from the Uncommon, but as far as what they agreed to, putting the dumpsters out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, taking them back in after the pickup, I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. They may not be doing a good job of having the dumpsters appropriately covered or full below the line of the lid so that things don't blow around when the dumpsters are placed in the wind.
Okay.
That may be a concern.
So let's go back and amend that last point at the very bottom of this document. And let's clarify that we think that they may not be keeping the dumpsters covered while they're out in the alley, and they may not be capturing all the trash. Some of it may be spilling when the dumpsters are being emptied.
Can I add something that, this process that we've gone through with Kathy and Uncommon really has made a big positive difference. Like, it used to be absolutely terrible, and now it's
livable. Yeah.
But
we've
it's-
dealt with so much
We're
worse.
much happier.
So-
But it's not as good as it could be. So, okay,
But
I
no,
see.
thank you, Kathy.
Okay, you're welcome.
I was going to say this was an example of how this kind of conversation and this
What?
process really
Can work.
can get to the results we all want.
Okay.
Even though it seems cumbersome sometimes.
Great. I'm seeing some hands raised. Laura, did you have a?
I just wanted to jump in real quick and say, I hope if there's more that we need to talk about the uncommon trash, I was a signer of that MOU, and there was a process that we set up. And if we need to activate it, I'd be glad to help do that, so we don't end up carving too much into our time in this meeting.
Okay, great. That's great. Let's do an offline, make sure we understand the concerns and specifically what the request is going to be to the building manager at the Uncommon. Okay, I see another hand up. Joe?
Oh, I'm good with what she just said about that, because the only thing I did want to add with it is when they're talking about trash pickup, and I will say one last thing with Uncommon, are they including like the mattresses and homeless encampment that they have underneath Uncommon as well, that they never do anything about?
That's mattresses, bulk pickup, that sort of thing is not something that I was aware of before. So let's add it to this conversation with the Uncommon, that there appears to be. So Joe, is it your understanding that these are things that are being thrown out by residents leaving
Yes,
the Uncommon, and then
absolutely.
it's attracting other problems?
I mean, if you want to say it politely like that, sure. The truth is, yes.
If you put a mattress out, someone is going to use it.
Yep, exactly. There's been mattresses in the alley that they've thrown out there that are now underneath that overhang in the back by their generators, where yesterday I got to walk through the alley coming from the church home to watch a man masturbating on the mattress in the alleyway. So, trash is one problem. Maybe they could take care of things like that as well. So
Okay.
I can echo that. I have zero trust in this process so far, because that's pretty ridiculous.
Well, okay, but remember how the process is supposed to work. As Laura said, there is a mechanism in the MOU for raising issues and concerns with the building manager of the Uncommon, and there's a response time that they are supposed to respond. Now, I'm sad to hear they're not aware that there are, furniture items being put in their generator area and that they're not taking care of that. But if they don't know about it, we can make sure they do learn about it and ask them to correct it within a certain time frame. So for this to work, everybody has to, you have a tool. You have to use the tool. The tool is, there's a liaison from your neighborhood who can contact the building manager, express a concern about, in this case, trash or stuff that's not supposed to be out there. And they have a certain period of time to respond and fix it. And if they don't, then it gets kicked up a level beyond the building manager to the building owner. And the building owner, I believe, is very sincere about solving this problem. But we can't be unfair to them by asking them to fix something that they don't know about. And so we should tell them about it. And, so that's our responsibility.
So if someone has a concern, who should they contact?
So Laura, are you the designee or is it someone else?
I think actually Elizabeth had volunteered to be the designee, and I think that the MOU was finalized just as we were all going into pandemic lockdown. And so there was a time when I'm going to just say emails were lost. And so I apologize for that this process hasn't gotten into motion yet for people and that you feel like it's not working at all. But I'm just going to have to apologize and say, now's our time to start working it. So
Okay, good. Exactly. So now more people are aware of it. Elizabeth, are you the designee who is to take neighborhood concerns and then reach out to, is Elizabeth still there?
I vaguely remember having this conversation with Laura back in the before times. And yes, I am still willing, but I actually don't know what I'm supposed to do. But
Okay.
I will step up, and I'm sorry that I'm pretty sure Laura and I both had the best of intentions and didn't connect appropriately because we just weren't expecting a global pandemic.
Right. So we can,
yeah,
this
and Elizabeth
can
and I
be,
just have a separate conversation about this, and then Elizabeth can be the point person. I think those who know Elizabeth, get in touch with her. She will be the MOU expert.
Like 5 minutes.
Yeah, there's not really a lot in there, so
Yeah.
then we can reconvene as needed. Let's just keep it between Elizabeth and me so we don't create new meetings for people, if that's all right.
that's fine. And if anybody has a question for me, just reach out. Laura and Elizabeth, as you're going through that, if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay. Now, okay, so we have the alley issues, I think, recorded here. Okay, the next category is how will the project benefit 7th Avenue Community Missionary Baptist Church? So the developer is going to be asked to respond to this. What I heard from a couple people on this meeting, so if we start, what I heard is there's a request to provide some parking for the church.
Yes.
Okay, so let's add that.
So is parking only needed on Sundays?
No, they have meetings on Wednesdays, or they'll have funerals or whatever, so we can't just say on Sundays.
Okay, so request to add parking for the church. All right. And in parentheses, let's put Sunday services, Wednesday meetings, and funerals.
And they meet on Thursday too.
Okay, Wednesday. Are those evening or daytime?
Brother,
Okay, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and funerals.
If I might project, this is 7th Avenue. We're talking about a church. That's 24/7.
Well, every church is, right?
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to capture so we can convey the request.
Understand that. Again, you asked the question. I just gave you a valid answer. I'm speaking from 7th
All right, so Matt, would you add to this note that the church has 24/7 needs for parking? All right.
And then I think those days outlined are just, the regular needs that we know about.
Right.
and how will this affect the handicap parking that's in the front, or any parking in the front?
Are you talking about on the street?
Yes.
Okay, and
Now they have two. How would this affect, well, can we get more, would we be able to park on the street? Will the handicap spots still be there, or because of all this they're gonna lose the 2 handicap spots or whatever?
Okay, so under number 9, parking, let's add E, and we'll come back up and talk about A through D. E is question about whether on-street parking on 7th Avenue. Oh, actually, we have that. Let's see. Concern that, so B is concerned that proposed building will cause a loss of off-street parking on 7th Avenue. So E is, will any handicap spaces be lost on 7th Avenue? Handicap parking spaces. Okay. All right. Okay, so if we go back up, are we ready to start at the top of the parking category here with, so A is there was a suggestion to build the parking below ground under the building.
So the only thing 7th Avenue is technically supposed to get out of this is a few parking spaces. That's the only benefit this has to 7th Avenue or the Wyland Park community.
Would you like to express additional requests?
I've made a whole bunch of requests. Request number one, don't build the building. That's number one. That eliminate a whole bunch of, in fact, that eliminate all the problems.
Okay, so under B, 8B, sorry, I'm not being clear here, 8B, we have had a request from the church not to build anything here, to leave it as is.
And how does that benefit the church?
Yeah, I think that addresses every problem except the parking problem.
Exactly. It's not
So
just the
building the building gives you an opportunity.
I'm talking about Wyland Park. You're looking at it from a selfish point of view, talking about what is going to benefit from the church. I'm talking about how it's going to benefit Wyland Park community, because we are a vital part of the community, and what affects the community affects us.
Okay, all right.
Community.
So we have 2 items listed here under 8, and this wording, how will the project benefit 7th Avenue Community Missionary Baptist Church? This is from a question that was made in a prior meeting. So if it's not broad enough and we need to broaden it to say how will it benefit Wineland Park, we can add that. I just want to make sure we're capturing what the concern is.
Exactly, because again, we are a part of the community and the community is a part of us.
Okay, great. All right. All right. Do we have
get a little bit more maybe concrete about the parking need at the church? Since this, building this building gives you the opportunity to talk to the builder and try to negotiate some parking. It may or may not happen, but maybe it's a more concrete, like how many parking spaces do we think we would need, for example?
Well, let's go back to my idea that I had. Instead of that building being right on top of the church, move it down some more if you're going to build that building to give them at least 10 to 15 more spaces.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Have the building offset from the church and put parking there, but how many spaces would you need? I mean, if we make this more concrete, then the builder can respond in a concrete way. At least 15
to 20 spaces should be right there.
Okay.
Are you guys asking for the spaces to be fully dedicated, like where the residents there would not use those spaces and they would be, just for the church parking?
Yes, just for the church.
Well,
and put a sign out there, 7th Avenue Baptist Church only.
I would say yes to that because they've talked about that they didn't even want to put enough spaces to cover all of the residents that they were going to have. So
let alone space for the church. Well, I'm glad that you're making this point because what I envisioned when you originally talked about this was that they would have a visitor parking maybe for their residents, people visiting their residents on that east side of the church, and that on Sundays that would be marked for church only parking. But this really sounds like you have you have a need throughout the week, not just on Sunday.
Okay, so
that's a good clarification.
So to keep things moving, I want to make sure I heard clearly. I heard a request for 15 parking spaces.
It was
15 to 20.
Okay, so under A at the end, let's add the request is for 15 to 20 parking spaces. Okay. All right, anything else that we need to capture under item 8 here, under category 8? Okay. All right, then let's go ahead and move down to 9. There was a suggestion to build the parking below ground. There was, we talked about the potential loss of on-street parking on 7th Avenue. We want to clarify that. There was concern expressed about the loss of a prior parking agreement with Kroger when the Uncommon was built. Now, I'd like to talk about this. So the owners, the building owners of the Uncommon have agreed to have a parking task force that Wineland Park and the church and Dennison Place and any other, affected neighbors would initiate and would invite Kroger to participate in. That is also in this MOU, and that can be activated at whatever time Wineland Park and the church have a subcommittee that you would like to initiate about parking in the area. So let's put let's add to C that the Uncommon MOU with Wineland Park and Dennison Place specifies that a working group on parking can be initiated and that Kroger will be invited to participate when Wineland Park would like to activate that working group. Okay, it looks like we have a hand raised. Clan Kloss. I can't read the whole thing.
That's Clan Kloss Nelligan. That's Michael Nelligan.
Oh, okay. It's cut off. It's cut off on the screen. I can't read the whole thing. Okay.
That's my really long name for us. I would like to recommend invite Northside Library to attend, even though they are not part of Wineland Park or Dennison Place. Because I know I have spoken with managers there who said that they received quiet requests every time a new building goes up to rent their parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so they might have some interesting perspectives on the parking questions.
Great. Okay, let's add to this then. Invite Northside Library to participate. Okay. All right, and I want to add that let's also add that the church is invited to participate in this parking working group as well. Okay. D is, there was a suggestion to look at the University District Plan and the zoning update about required parking. I wasn't clear in the way that comment was captured as to whether this is exactly what was being suggested. I think the developer who's proposing this building will have to work within the current zoning requirements for parking or get a variance. So does that seem to capture this? Okay.
Sounds like the person who suggested that isn't in this meeting, but
that's possible too.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I can imagine though that we want to educate ourselves better as a committee or subcommittee, educate ourselves better about what the exact zoning requirements are.
Okay.
And that way we sort of know what the variance is against. What was the zoning, that is supposed to be in place, and then, compare that with what they're asking for. And just make sure understand
details about that.
Okay, and then Elizabeth had a question about whether the proposal is in line with the current zoning. I think the developer has a list of potential zoning variances. We'll need to keep in mind that that may change as the design, as the massing and the height and those things change. The variance, the list of variances may change as well. It's kind of a moving target. If you change what you're building, it changes how it's how it relates to the required zoning requirements. Okay. All right. We already talked about handicap parking spaces and a concern that those not be lost along East 7th. Okay. So I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm going to move on to 10 because we're at 7:40 p.m. and you all have been incredibly generous with your time. So 10, how will this developer be different in honoring promises? So let me address how I suggest this could work. I know that there's been discussion about what was discussed with the Uncommon, with the developer of that building before they built it. To my knowledge, those things were not put in an agreement, a written agreement. There was conversation, and there may have been things that were said and promised. I don't know because I wasn't involved in it. But my understanding is there's no written agreement. What would be different here is that the developer and Wineland Park Community Civic Association and potentially the church, if they would like to, would sign an agreement that says what each party is going to do. And that would be the basis of Wineland Park potentially supporting zoning variances for the developer. So the developer would be gaining something of value, and in exchange, they would be agreeing to do some things, change the massing of the building, improve the street presence of the project, agree to an operational remedy for trash handling, and other things that I don't know what all the answers are yet because we haven't had we haven't started to try to work on solutions.
And we have it notarized and signed so that this time they can't say like the Commons did, we promised, but we didn't say that. So can we have it notarized?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a good suggestion.
Yeah, and I will say also that I know there was no written agreement, or I'm told there was no written agreement with the original owner of the Uncommon, the developer who built it. They subsequently sold that building to a new owner. The new owner is the group that Wineland Park and Dennison Place now have a memorandum of understanding with. And that document is signed, and it was the basis of supporting a subsequent variance for the Uncommon with the new owner. So yes, it can be notarized. The idea is that this developer is going to agree. Now, we don't know. We have a big, long list here. This is a big list. We're going to have to work through one by one with them, our working group and the developer, and see what is possible. And, some decisions are going to have to be made about what they're offering, what they can do, what's affordable within their project budget, what they can commit to, and what the neighborhood feels is sufficient. So, those are decisions that have to be made down the road. But at the end of the day, whatever's agreed to, assuming there's an agreement, whatever's agreed to gets documented in writing, signed, notarized, so that everybody is serious about it. Okay.
Michael Nelligan has a question.
Oh, yes, sorry, I'm not looking at the hands raised. Yes.
That's fine. I'm gonna throw one thing out here from deep history in Wineland Park, which is that in the past, Campus Partners representatives have told the Wineland Park Housing Committee that memorandums of understanding
I'm not hearing you now.
Michael, I think we lost you for a second.
Michael? Michael?
Sounds back.
Well, I think what Michael was about to say was that, you know, Aaron
Network
Prosser had
issues.
told us that.
I'm giving up my headset so Michael can talk.
Okay, go ahead.
One problem with living on Chromebooks is the internet on them sucks. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The Campus Partners representatives have previously said to us that memorandums of understanding are tenuous at best. We've actually had decent experience with the one with the current owners of Uncommon. But sort of what I think Campus Partners was saying was that if it gets really ugly, the people with the biggest lawyers are going to win.
Isn't that the way the whole world works?
Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and they're right. They're right. Yes, the people with the biggest lawyers win. And so the goal of this is to make this as enforceable. I'm going to use the word enforceable, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not trying to be a lawyer here. I will say that, you know, on the memorandums of understanding that Dennison Place has signed, we have, you know, we have an attorney in the neighborhood who reviewed it and made it as strong as possible in terms of being enforceable. But at the end of the day, there's no way to prevent somebody who just decides they're going to be irresponsible and not do it and wait to be sued. So I probably shouldn't do this. I don't want to introduce politics, but there's a certain developer who's known in this country for walking away from all of his obligations and not paying his contractors and, you know, all of those things. There is no way to protect against that if someone is going to be a truly bad actor. So I would suggest we look at what Peerless Development's record is in this regard and see whether, you know, they are not a good neighbor.
Yes, I believe, I just want to say, I think that was in the past Campus Partners' way of saying, we're not going to throw our lawyers into this. And so it's just a data point for the neighborhood to consider.
Okay.
And that was all I was going for.
Okay.
And I think you stated it very well, that we need to determine who we are dealing with.
We need to determine who we're dealing with, and, you know, we need to decide if we want to work with them. I think it, you know, and there's a couple ways to do that. One way to do it is to go in and say, all developers are evil people. None of them can be trusted. Therefore, we will not try to negotiate anything with any of them. We will oppose all development. And we know doing that, that's not likely to win anything for the neighborhood. And it's likely to lose potential gains for the neighborhood, because we've said, no, we're not willing to trust anybody. We're not willing to give anybody the benefit of the doubt to start. And we know that eventually, because the city has a need to develop more housing, we know that city council is going to look at us and say, you're not being reasonable. You know, we need more housing. More housing needs to get
The
built.
headphones back on? Can you listen?
Hello?
I think
Okay.
that was an accident.
Sorry,
probably. We do need to wrap this up. It's been about 2 hours, so I think we need to
would
end
like
by
to
8.
interject something though, because again, you kept that Patty Rice conversation going on and on when you knew this was vital as well. But the point was made about getting it in writing. I have in my hand a letter that was written from Kroger's on April 20th, 1993, that gave us permission to use this parking, and it has no value to it whatsoever. So because you got it in writing, and we have the manager and the area estate manager, real estate manager signature on here, but it means nothing to us. So you can say you putting it in writing means a heck of a whole lot. In some cases it do, but in many cases it don't.
Great. So I would love to see that letter because we have, okay, so we have on our list here that Wineland Park can initiate this parking working group, and Kroger will be invited, and the Uncommon will participate, and Dennison Place will participate, and we'll invite the library. And that letter from Kroger, I would like to see that so that we can incorporate it into that process, and we can ask Kroger why they're not. Okay, so I'm going to do another little timeout here. Matt has asked us to wrap this up. I'm hoping we've captured all the concerns. If there's anything we haven't captured, let's get it captured now. And then we need to move on to our next 2 items because we only have about 8 minutes to do it. We need to, once we've captured all the concerns, then we need to take, we need to see who would like to volunteer to be on the working group. And we need to confirm our meeting schedule, which is going to be Monday the 10th, Monday the 17th, and Monday the 24th of May at 7 p.m. For each of those. And
Kathy,
yes, yes.
Does it have to be Mondays? This is the reason I ask is 'cause the neighborhood, I was just actually writing a message to everybody. The neighborhood work days for the Indianola Euclid Community Garden are Mondays from 7 till 8.
Well, I talked in advance with Matt about this and Michael about what the Wineland Park meetings schedule is. And we were trying to find a day that works, that is not competing with Wineland Park's schedule and that worked for my schedule, since I'm offering to facilitate the meetings.
And I really appreciate that. No, it's just that the Klaus Nelligan Foundation just spent a bunch of its own money on new signs that said we're having our meetup dates from 7 till 8. We used to 6 to 7 because back when we started, Liam was little and we had to make sure he was in bed by 8:30. But now he's like an adult, so like we could update to 7 to 8. So we'll work it out. But that would. We just bought the signs.
What time are you proposing?
I have magic markers if we need to change the date or the time.
What time are you proposing, Kathy?
7 p.m.
I mean,
On
can
Mondays.
you do earlier?
on the next 3 Mondays.
We can't do earlier in the day, like 5:30?
That's terrible.
I like 7, yeah.
Okay.
We'll work it out. I will send
Yeah.
my ungrateful spawn to coordinate the garden stuff, or I'll bring my phone and because I would like to participate, but I also Mondays 6 to 7 or 7 to 8,
Yeah.
IE garden, and we bought a bunch of new stuff, so everybody should come. And also the IE garden is a place that if we want to have a meeting, if assuming it's not raining, that's a space that is pretty. Well, it's pretty and it's neutral and it's welcome to everybody. Just, I'm going to stop.
If we wanted to meet in person outside, is that
Yeah.
what we're,
Yeah,
okay,
if we wanted to meet in person outside and with social distancing.
right. Okay, I will say that at least for the first meeting on the 10th, it has to be at 7 because I have a conflict earlier. But the other two could be moved differently. But what I'm hearing is different people have different preferences about earlier or later. So why don't we do this? Why don't we see who would like to volunteer to be on the working group? And and if you want to volunteer, if you could speak up and say your name, because we can't see everybody with the screen share. We can only see a few people at a time.
Neil Belair, I'd like to volunteer.
Okay, so Neil and Elizabeth, are you volunteering?
Of course.
Okay. Other volunteers?
Michael would also like to volunteer. Michael Nelligan would also like to volunteer, but he's doing work right now.
Okay, but he would be available for the meetings?
Yes, we'll make the ungrateful spawn do the community garden.
Okay. All right, other volunteers. Let's see, is there another hand up? That's Elizabeth. Any other volunteers who would like to be on this working group?
I was hoping someone from the church would be interested.
You can
Most
Can I
definitely
also-
Riley Goolsby.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I think we have,
2.
I'm sorry, how many from the church?
No, that's Davinia. That's my wife. I don't send a woman to do a man's work. Riley Goolsby.
Wow, that was really not appropriate.
Well, you
Yeah.
shouldn't have put Davinia up
Certainly
there. I said
inappropriate.
Riley Goolsby. Don't tell me how to run my household.
All right. Well, equality is important too. So
It
who
sure
else?
is. Don't you tell me how-
Okay,
Um,
just,
I think there are a couple of other neighbors on Euclid Avenue who signed in earlier and are now putting their small children to bed because it is the witching hour. Is it possible to allow people to contact someone in the next couple of days if they would like to be part of this subcommittee, even if they're not here right now?
yes. So if you, Elizabeth, I think you have my email address.
I'm sure I can get it, but if I don't, but
Yeah,
yes.
so,
Well, I can
Oh.
send an email out asking for volunteers with the listserv that we use.
okay, that's great. And why don't we also send this list out with it and see if there are any, just so everybody has the list. Now, okay, so we have, the next meeting is going to be next Monday and it needs to be at 7. We can talk about whether we change it after that. I think we are going to do it by Zoom, just because I don't know what the weather's going to be, and I'd hate to try to do a process outside with flip charts and markers and
Rain.
and rain. Yes, I would hate to do it that way. So, I'm seeing, it looks like Pastor Roby is also volunteering from the chat. Okay. So what I want to say now about this list, this was a lot of work, and you all did a great job of getting all the concerns out there. We need to recognize that some of these opinions and concerns conflict with each other. They can't all happen because some people prefer things one way and some people prefer them a different way. We're going to try to make sure that we get as many of these things addressed as we can. The other part of it is the developer they have a budget. I don't know what it is, but they have one, and they will be looking at what they can do within their budget. There may be some trade-offs. There may be some things that help them have a more economical project that then allow them to do something else that the neighborhood is asking for. We're going to push on those kinds of potential opportunities. And I don't know what they are yet because, we're going to have to share this list with the developer and ask them to be ready to respond. And I think some of the basic things, as Elizabeth had said, until we know what the building height and massing is, we really can't get into the design issues, and that's right. So we're going to have to take these in an order that works from that perspective. And we may have to work on some things before other things. But that's why we have 3 meetings, so that hopefully we can get through all of them. Let's see. We have someone else volunteering here. Joe Papio. Am I saying that right? Papio? Joe Papio. Papio. Okay. All right, so I want to make sure everybody's going into this eyes open and understanding that this is a negotiation process, and it means that everybody needs to be open-minded, and everybody needs to be willing to look at weighing what's more important between 1 and 2 or A and B. I don't know what those trade-offs that are going to be asked for are yet, because we haven't gotten into the conversation. But to make this be successful, everybody needs to be open-minded. Everybody needs to think about, are there things that are less important? And are there other things that are more important? And how are we going to find the best solution that accomplishes the most, that's most important to the neighborhood? We're not going to get everything. It just, I shouldn't say it never happens, but I will say, as a facilitator, I've never seen both sides get everything they want. It's always been, you have to weigh what's most important to you. Okay.
Awesome. I think
All
that's about it.
All right. And we'll get out the meeting invitation to the working group before next Monday. And Matt, you can get this list out to everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Great.
Yeah, I mean, really, Kathy, it's just been illuminating. You're just such a pro at this, and I really appreciate you. I mean, I can't handle something like this. It's really amazing to have your expertise. So thank you so much. Elizabeth, did you have a final comment?
I just wanted to add my thanks to Kathy for doing this. I know it's a lot of work and it's a lot of emotional work. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you.
Well, you're all welcome. You're all neighbors. So that's really important to me.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's going to be a unique process, and I think it's going to be a lot more productive than these meetings would be for this outcome. So I'm really excited. Look for the email. I'll send the list out, and we hope to get more people volunteering for the subcommittee.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. It was great to talk with you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.